The crowd was electric. The Mirage Theater pulsed with excitement. Another night, another masterpiece by Siegfried and Roy, the kings of Las Vegas illusion. As the lights dimmed, thousands of eyes fixed on the stage, waiting for the impossible to unfold. Roy Horn, radiant in his sequin jacket, smiled at his partner. Behind him, his beloved white tiger, Manticore, prowled with the grace of a god. For years, their connection had defied logic. Man and beast, predator and protector, bound by something stronger than fear. But in just a few heartbeats, everything would change. A single misstep, a startled movement, and suddenly a gasp. The illusion shattered. The tiger lunged. Roy's hand reached out not for defense, but trust. "No, Manticore, no!" he cried, as the audience watched in frozen disbelief. Moments later, the lights went dark. The music stopped. The magic was gone. That night didn't just end a show. It ended an era. And behind the blood, the headlines, and the silence that followed, lies a story of devotion, mystery, and a bond so powerful it blurred the line between love and danger. Before that tragic night, Siegfried and Roy were more than entertainers. They were living legends. They had built an empire on wonder, illusion, and trust. To see them perform was to believe that magic was real, not because of tricks but because of connection. Siegfried Fischbacher, the mastermind of illusion. Roy Horn, the heart. Together, they turned wild danger into beauty. Their shows weren't mere performances, they were living poetry. Tigers leapt through rings of fire, lions prowled across the stage, and at the center of it all stood Roy, unflinching, fearless, almost divine. Every performance whispered a message. Fear can be tamed. Nature can be trusted. Magic is real if you believe. Their success was staggering millions in ticket sales, a permanent residency at the Mirage, and a reputation that made them the face of Las Vegas spectacle. They didn't just entertain. They ruled. But behind the fame was something deeper, Roy's almost spiritual bond with his animals. He didn't see them as props. He saw them as equals. He called Manticore his soul companion. To Roy, the white tiger symbolized purity, a reflection of his own belief that love, not dominance, could bridge any divide. And maybe that's what made them different. While others used fear to control, Roy used compassion to connect. But here's the paradox: when you dance that close to danger, when your art depends on controlling the uncontrollable, you stop knowing where trust ends and risk begins. And as their empire reached its peak, that line began to blur. The Mirage stage, once a temple of triumph, was becoming a test of fate. October 3, 2003. Roy's 59th birthday. The energy backstage was vibrant, yet something felt off. Crew members later recalled how Roy seemed tired, distracted. But as always, when the curtain rose, he transformed. Manticore, the majestic white tiger, was part of the show's finale, a scene Roy had performed hundreds of times before. The routine was rehearsed, precise, and flawless. But that night, small details were different. The tiger entered the stage late. The lights felt hotter. The crowd was louder than usual. And when Roy stumbled slightly during a step, Manticore reacted, not aggressively but curiously. Roy, ever the showman, placed his hand on the tiger's head and smiled to the audience. But the moment was fragile. The rhythm between them cracked. And that's when it happened. Manticore gripped Roy's arm. The crowd gasped. Was this part of the act? Roy's smile faltered. His body stiffened. Crew members rushed toward the stage, unsure whether to intervene. Then came the moment that silenced the theater. Manticore lunged. His jaws closed around Roy's neck, dragging him across the floor like a broken doll. People screamed. Security rushed in. The music stopped. But what few noticed was the look on Roy's face. Not terror, but confusion. Almost as if he didn't believe what was happening. Almost as if, even in that instant, he trusted Manticore not to hurt him. Later, some claimed Roy whispered the words, "Don't hurt him." The illusion was gone. But something far more human emerged. A tragic, beautiful vulnerability. That night, 1,500 people witnessed not just an accident, but the death of the idea that man can ever truly tame nature. Chaos followed. Blood. Panic. The once joyful crowd now frozen in horror. Stagehands wrestled to free Roy from Manticore's grip. Siegfried ran from the wings, screaming his partner's name. The lights went black to spare the audience the sight. Paramedics swarmed backstage. Roy was barely alive. His carotid artery had been severed. He'd lost massive amounts of blood before even leaving the theater. As he was rushed to the hospital, he suffered a stroke, leaving him paralyzed on one side. The show, The Empire, ended instantly. The Mirage shut down Siegfried and Roy that same night. After more than 13,000 performances, the magic stopped forever. But the world wanted answers. Was it rage? Instinct? Revenge? Experts speculated endlessly. Some said the tiger was startled by the audience's reaction. Others believed Roy's stumble triggered a predatory reflex. Yet Roy himself offered a different truth. When he recovered enough to speak, he said, "Manticore was trying to protect me. I had a stroke on stage. He sensed it and dragged me to safety." Was it denial? Or was it love refusing to see betrayal? To Roy, Manticore had not attacked, he had saved. That statement divided the world. Some saw delusion, others saw devotion. But for Roy, it wasn't about the world's opinion. It was about identity. He had built his entire life on connection, on the belief that harmony between human and beast was possible. To admit otherwise would mean his entire life's purpose was a lie. And that's the haunting truth about identity. When your purpose shatters, you'll cling to the pieces, even if they cut you. In the years that followed, Roy's recovery became both a miracle and a mystery. He defied every medical prediction. Paralyzed, yes, but alive. Quiet, yet determined. His spirit refused to die, even when his body wouldn't cooperate. The world's fascination only grew. Documentaries, interviews, endless speculation. People wanted closure, but Roy gave them something different. Peace. He never spoke of anger. He never blamed Manticore. Instead, he said, "I will never retire. The magic lives in every heartbeat." He kept visiting Manticore daily. He fed him, stroked his fur, and whispered to him, even when others warned him to stay away. In those moments, Roy seemed at peace, as if the tiger had become not a reminder of pain, but a symbol of forgiveness. The Mirage Theater was dismantled. The lights faded. But the myth endured because the truth was never fully told. Maybe it didn't need to be, because deep down we all saw ourselves in that story, the part of us that trusts too deeply, that reaches for the untamable, that believes love can conquer danger. Roy's story wasn't about a man losing control. It was about a man refusing to stop believing. And in that refusal, there was power. Roy Horn spent the rest of his life quietly, surrounded by the animals he loved. Manticore lived until 2014, and Roy was with him until the very end. When Manticore died, Roy said only, "He will always be part of me." There was no bitterness, no blame, just love. That's what makes this story so haunting. Not the attack, but the forgiveness that followed. Because in a world obsessed with control, Roy's life reminds us that true connection requires surrender. That faith, even misplaced, can be more powerful than fear. He once said, "When you face death, you realize that love is the only real magic." And maybe that's the lesson behind the spectacle, behind the glitter, the danger, and the fame. Roy Horn's final act wasn't a trick gone wrong. It was a revelation. Even when the illusion breaks, the magic inside us doesn't die. He turned tragedy into tenderness, pain into purpose. And in doing so, he left us a story that will never stop stirring our hearts. Because somewhere between the spotlight and the shadows, between trust and danger, lies the truth Roy Horn lived by. Magic isn't about control. It's about love. Fearless, fragile, and forever. At the end, I want to ask you guys, what will you do if you are in this situation? Don't forget to share your thoughts.